Chapter 4 Kaguya's Choice. For countless generations, the Otsutsuki had followed the same cycle. A world would be chosen, a pair would arrive, the sacrifice would be made, the divine tree would grow, the chakra fruit would ripen, the harvest would end. Then the clan would depart in search of another world. There is no indication anywhere in the surviving canon that this process had ever failed before. Earth was never supposed to be different. Yet in the span of a single decision, Kaguya transformed what should have been another routine harvest into the defining turning point of planetary history. Following Ishiki's defeat, she stood alone, the superior member of the expedition, the one who was expected to complete the mission and inherit the chakra fruit, had disappeared from her immediate view. Unknown to Kaguya, he had survived only by taking refuge within the body of the monk Jigen. For all practical purposes, however, Ishiki no longer posed an immediate obstacle. The mission now belonged to her entirely. At this point, it is worth pausing to appreciate just how extraordinary this moment truly was. Every major conflict that humanity would later remember, the rise of the hidden villages, the great ninja wars, Madara's ambitions, the Fourth Great Ninja War, even Naruto Uzumaki's birth thousands of years later, depends entirely upon one simple fact. Kaguya did not leave. She remained. Had she abandoned Earth after defeating Ishiki, the planet's history would have unfolded in an entirely different direction. Humanity would likely have continued developing as it always had, never learning to manipulate chakra because chakra would never have been introduced into human civilization in the manner that followed. Instead, Kaguya chose to stay. Unfortunately, the reasons behind that choice remain among the greatest mysteries in Naruto's canon. The manga never allows Kaguya to narrate her own thoughts during this period. She leaves no written record. No conversation survives from those earliest days. Later generations would attempt to explain her actions, but they did so with only fragments of the truth. As historians, we must separate what is known from what is inferred. What is known is remarkably simple. Kaguya betrayed Ishiki. She remained on Earth. She ultimately cultivated the divine tree herself. She consumed the chakra fruit. Everything else must be approached carefully. One possibility is survival. Within Otsutsuki society, rank determined who would ultimately benefit from a harvest. If Kaguya truly occupied the lower position beneath Ishiki, then the ritual may have required her own sacrifice. By removing Ishiki from the equation, she removed the immediate threat to her own life. Another possibility is ambition. The chakra fruit represented unimaginable power. Every Otsutsuki sought greater evolution, and no individual had ever reached a final state of perfection. Consuming the fruit herself would elevate Kaguya beyond the station assigned to her by the clan. A third possibility emerges much later in history. Centuries after these events, evidence suggests that Kaguya feared other members of the Otsutsuki clan would eventually come searching for her. If that fear already existed at the time of Ishiki's betrayal, then obtaining the chakra fruit may have represented preparation for an inevitable confrontation. None of these explanations contradict one another. It is entirely possible that all three influenced her decision, yet at this point in our chronology, Kaguya had revealed none of this to anyone. Only her actions can be observed. Those actions reveal a woman who immediately began reshaping Earth's future. Somewhere upon the planet, Kaguya established the conditions necessary for the divine tree to grow. The exact location has never been identified. No map survives. No ancient ruin definitively marks the site where the first divine tree took root. This is hardly surprising. Thousands of years would pass before historians even attempted to reconstruct these events. Landscapes changed, kingdoms disappeared, Forests spread over forgotten civilizations. Whatever traces remained of that first planting were almost certainly erased by time itself. Nevertheless, the results are unmistakable. The 10 Tails began its transformation. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, its roots spread farther with every passing day. Unlike the sudden violence that later generations would associate with great shinobi battles, the work of the divine tree was patient, silent, and invisible. Entire forests continued growing above roots that stretched beneath them. Rivers continued flowing, animals migrated across plains, human settlements carried on with ordinary life, completely unaware that something vast had awakened beneath their feet. There is no evidence that humanity initially recognized the danger. Why would they? Nothing like the divine tree had ever existed on Earth. No language contained words to describe it. No religion had anticipated it. No king possessed advisors capable of understanding what was occurring beneath its own kingdom. Life simply continued. The people of Earth married, raised children, harvested crops, fought wars, celebrated festivals, and mourned their dead. All while the greatest organism their planet had ever known quietly extended its reach beneath every continent. As the tree matured, it began drawing upon the immense reservoir of natural energy contained within the planet itself. Every living creature contributed, whether knowingly or not. Each blade of grass, each towering cedar, each insect hidden beneath a stone, each bird crossing the sky, every human life. The divine tree did not distinguish between them. Everything living became part of the harvest. For the Otsutsuki, this was precisely how the universe was meant to function. For Earth, it was the beginning of an age unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. And at the center of it all stood Kaguya. She watched, she waited. She alone understood what the growing tree would eventually produce. The chakra fruit. The culmination of an entire world's accumulated life. The object for which planets were sacrificed. The source of power that had driven Otsutsuki's civilization across the stars for countless ages. As the fruit slowly matured, Kaguya found herself facing a choice unlike any Otsutsuki before her. She could preserve the traditions of her clan, or she could claim the harvest for herself. History tells us which decisions she ultimately made. But before she reached out to grasp the fruit hanging from the branches of the divine tree, the world itself had already begun to change. For reasons no human could yet understand, nature was becoming quieter. The forest seemed different. The balance of life had begun to shift. Humanity did not yet realize it, but the age of ordinary history was already coming to an end. Soon, a single bite of a single fruit would divide all of history into two eras, the world before chakra and the world after it. Chapter 5. The Chakra Fruit. History often remembers great turning points as singular moments. A king is crowned, a city falls, a battle is won. In reality, those moments are usually the culmination of countless events that came before them. The creation of the chakra fruit was no different. Long before Kaguya ever reached out to claim it, the divine tree had already begun fulfilling the purpose for which it had been brought to Earth. Across the planet, life continued as it always had. Kingdoms rose and fell, children were born, armies marched, merchants crossed rivers and mountain passes, farmers tended to their fields beneath changing seasons. No one realized that the world itself was slowly changing beneath their feet. The divine tree asked for nothing. It announced nothing. It conquered nothing through war. Instead, it quietly drew upon the life of the planet. Every forest, every meadow, every ocean, every living creature. Its work was gradual, but relentless. To those living during this age, the changes may have been imperceptible. A poor harvest might be blamed on changing weather. A dying forest could be dismissed as natural misfortune. Entire generations could pass without recognizing that the planet itself was being transformed by an unseen force. The divine tree had no need to hurry. Time meant little to an organism designed to harvest entire worlds. Eventually, after drawing upon the immense vitality of the planet, the tree produced the object for which the entire process existed, the chakra fruit. Although later generations often speak of it as though it were simply a magical fruit, that description barely captures its significance. The chakra fruit was not merely infused with chakra, it was chakra. More precisely, it represented an unimaginable concentration of the planet's accumulated life energy, refined and compressed into a single form. Everything the divine tree had absorbed was now contained within it. Every root that had spread beneath the earth, every drop of natural energy gathered over countless years, every fragment of life redirected into the tree, all of it now existed within one extraordinary object. No comparable artifact has ever naturally existed within the Naruto world. Nothing forged by human hands, nothing created through ninjutsu, nothing produced by science. The chakra fruit stood entirely alone. For the Otsutsuki, this was the reward. The fruit represented the successful completion of a harvest, and the next step in their endless pursuit of evolution. By consuming it, an Otsutsuki dramatically increased their chakra and advanced beyond their previous limits. It was this process, repeated across countless worlds, that had allowed their clan to become one of the most powerful civilizations known to exist. Originally, that reward had never been intended for Kaguya. Whether through rank, tradition, or assignment, the harvest belonged to Ishiki. But Ishiki no longer stood beside her. The fruit did. In later centuries, many would ask whether Kaguya hesitated before eating it. The truth is that canon gives us no answer. There is no surviving account describing her thoughts. No witness recorded the moment. No conversation survives. History preserves only the decision itself. Kaguya consumed the chakra fruit. With that single act, the history of Earth changed forever. The transformation that followed cannot be fully understood through ordinary human experience. Imagine every river flowing into a single sea. Imagine every star in the night sky collapsing into one brilliant point of light. Imagine the life accumulated by an entire world becoming part of a single individual. That is the closest comparison history can offer. The enormous reservoir of chakra contained within the fruit flowed into Kaguya. Her body, already that of an Otsutsuki, underwent another dramatic evolution. Her chakra expanded beyond anything Earth had ever known. Her perception changed. Her abilities multiplied. The distinction between mortal and the divine became increasingly meaningless. She had not merely become stronger, she had become something entirely new. It is here that later generations began referring to Kaguya as a goddess. It is important to understand that this title did not originate with the Otsutsuki. To her own clan, consuming a chakra fruit was extraordinary, but it was also part of the purpose for which worlds were harvested. It elevated an individual, but it did not make them an object of worship. The word goddess belongs to humanity. It reflects how ordinary people interpreted what they eventually witnessed. And given the difference in power between Kaguya and every other living being on Earth, their conclusion is understandable. To those who had never seen chakra, who had never witnessed supernatural ability, who had no language capable of describing such phenomena, what else could she possibly be? Yet perhaps the greatest consequence of consuming the chakra fruit was not Kaguya's own transformation. It was what happened to the planet itself. For the first time in Earth's history, chakra had become a part of the world. Before this moment, humanity possessed life energy, just as all living things do. But the concept of chakra, as it would later be understood by Shinobi, did not exist within human civilization. No one molded it. No one passed it to their children. No one developed techniques from it. Now the source of that power existed upon the earth in a form unlike anything before. Exactly how chakra spread throughout humanity remains one of the more subtle aspects of Naruto's ancient history. The series never depicts a single moment when every human suddenly acquired chakra. Instead, what follows suggests a gradual transformation of the world under Kaguya's influence. Humanity's relationship with chakra would evolve over generations, eventually reaching its defining turning point through Kaguya's descendants. But that story belongs to a later age. For now, there was only Kaguya. She stood alone as the sole being upon earth possessing power beyond human imagination. The woman who had arrived as one member of an Otsutsuki expedition had become the single most powerful entity on the planet. No king could oppose her. No army could challenge her. No civilization could even begin to understand her. The balance of power that had governed Earth since the dawn of mankind no longer existed. There was humanity, and then there was Kaguya. History had entered an entirely new era. The age of ordinary civilization was ending. The age of the rabbit goddess was about to begin.